And we harness the lightning for hire. Man is the Lord of his spirit. We are back.
We are back. Do you mind if I do a little Hare Krishna chant before we get started?
Please do. Set the tone, my good man.
This is a chant with some of the sacred names of God himself in it. Krishna and Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare.
Yeah, man. So I mentioned just a minute ago the Hare Krishna chant. He done one a little bit different there. But we got into the Gita book
A
couple days ago, and I had never actually done one of these particular chants, and yeah, I was pretty deep into Shells of Kava, but the way that added on, I mean, I was having, I was going to say Ringo, inside joke.
I've said that before in these videos. It's an inside joke.
It's an inside joke. It's Ringo, by the way. Who we're talking about is the Beatles.
Helter Skelter.
Exactly. I've got blisters on my fingers.
Yep. I listened to that song the other day.
I was thinking of that song the other day. Synchronicities again. Now, real quick before I cover what I was going to say on that, I want to go back to something I say all the time, starting up the videos. Harness the lightning for hire. Man is the Lord of his spirit. We've talked about before. That's Aleister Crowley. It's that's a little section of some of his poetry in the early days, but we'll get into this later on. But we're actually just starting to read one of his books that he just literally bought today. And what
not the physical copy because it's.
We'll get into that as well.
Yeah, I got a digital copy. It's called Magic and Theory and Practice, and it. Like I said, I've only read a little bit of it, and he's already covered some very interesting things. Yeah.
One thing I want to say about Crowley, because I've said a lot of different things sprinkled, off and on a lot of our videos, but, he's just where he's so open and even like recommends these certain, call them drugs,
vegetable substances.
I respect that so much because we at least you just have to find out what works the best.
Find your allies.
But I really have learned, and I want to express this because we're not expecting, to be honest, this channel to get that much really recognition.
Yeah.
We're just doing it as a way to
spread memes upstream.
If one person does see it, that makes us very happy. If not, and we've still put something out there that can always be out there.
And me and you are literally people just like anyone else. There's nothing special about us at all. And we just, we grew up in a
situation to where
very
unique,
fundamentalist, and very, can't say this word very well, rural.
I can never say that
area, and we saw a lot of things in these traditions that were hypocritical, and it kind of caused us to explore other ideas about reality.
This is kind of maybe an off and on pretty cool theme for today's video. Maybe explaining some of the situations that, real quick, I do not mean to interrupt you, my good man. I just want to say, I would ask anybody who watches this to make their judgments on a big portion of it anyway, would be what your experience has been, and are you drawn to whatever it is with truth, or because it's possibly what somebody thinks of you, or a family member, a friend, a co-worker. Look, the truth is, at least, we've had deep conversations on this subject. We feel that, if we was to go talking about this with most of the people we know, we would definitely have caused a lot of so-called controversy.
Definitely.
So, just real quick, before we even get into this, ask yourself, whatever religion or anything else you're practicing, are you doing it for yourself, for actual personal growth, or are you doing this under the condition you have
This is so
been
important,
handed?
man. Because I see so many people. I work with people that are self-proclaimed Christians, and they listen to some of the same music that I do.
Very,
Devilish music, if you will.
look, Electric Wizard has a picture of the devil himself on one of his albums.
And he's smoking a bong, for God's sake.
The devil's lettuce, come on.
And this is I think, a very nasty situation to find yourself in, which is, I can imagine the cognitive dissonance that a lot of these people feel on a day-to-day basis. Trying to have this facade maybe for their family, but feeling a different way. I think that, like the William Blake saying, if the truth can be said, it will be believed. And if you're kind of like, I don't know about this, and then your preacher is like, hey, you can't question the word of God. Like, that's a red flag. That's what I like about the Buddha too. He talks about, like, you should investigate this. You should test it, whatever it is, and see what works and see what resonates with you. But it does take a type of mental emancipation to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So that's the first goal if you're interested in spirituality, I think, is mental emancipation.
Yeah, this is something he has touched on for a great many of years. He talked about it whenever I wasn't really aware of what it meant. I would love to just come forth and reveal the truth for the time being. The reason is the amount of euphoria that I'm experiencing, that I also assume that you yourself are experiencing. You see, for a great many of years, it has been wrong, for example, to state in the public, oh, I am a cannabis user. This is a very great plant that helps me with a great many of things. It is wrong to say right now the so-called controversy with kratom, a lot of people with kava. So at this moment, we are literally, and I promise you, experiencing such spiritual sensations on the kava kratom combo, and everything that is coming from our lips is actually coming from these two sacred plants combined. That's an example of, if you're told from a young age this is wrong, and you never do it. I mean, I could have easily lived my whole life never touching any of these holy plants, because, by the way, this smells very great.
Yes, this
This
incense.
incense.
I bought some Tibetan incense online.
Oh, it's just setting the mood, man. And,
yeah, it does, man. I think that's a big purpose of incense. It's supposed to kind of help you ease into that mystical state of mind.
I can totally see that, man.
Yeah, it's been used for a long time.
You got all these things perfect, working in perfect harmony. Alchemy, exactly. But as I just mentioned, we have to realize that possibly you guys maybe was raised the way we was, and it seems so long really toward those times. I mean, for one thing, it seems what has actually been like close to 10 years since we ever went into a organized religion church.
Mm-hmm.
It's been so many years. But there was a time, when we was growing up, that we had no say in it. We was there every Sunday. People have accepted, for example, alcohol. Something such as cannabis is frowned upon, and as we mentioned earlier, called the devil's lettuce.
Before the 1930s, cannabis was available in all pharmacies. It was seen as a natural remedy for a lot of ailments. George Washington was a cultivator.
I read that the other day.
Yeah, he was a hemp grower.
And it's speculated that he himself indulged in the plant.
I don't know, man.
At least he grew it.
It's possible. He definitely grew it. We gotta understand, cannabis, you know, it's like McKenna says, cannabis is your friend in more ways than one.
Yeah.
You know, not only can it help you, along with these other plants like kava and kratom too, not only can it help you, you know, perhaps get by, you know, with some of the more mundane things you have to do and make it a little easier,
For
or
sure.
help your
Yeah.
anxiety, because you know living in this culture is not easy. You know,
Matter of fact, it's
but it can also lend mystical insight too.
it's quite unsettling, at least especially in the times that we are living in with so much chaos.
Yeah, I mean, we just got a whole new chaos, you know, with
It's-
Israel and Iran stuff going on, and I heard Russia's going to get involved too.
Yeah, well, you see, the
and-
truth is we need to.
Our days are numbered,
Our days are numbered. He's
every
right.
one of us.
We need to, even though we feel we may not have any say so in these situations.
It does. I mean, it feels hopeless sometimes, you know, and
We still got to. The truth is, no, we've talked about this. For anybody that has some type of hideout, if a war in some other dimension does break out, I recommend anybody to do whatever possible to get out of it. There's no sense of us, sitting here lying to fight. It's
I'm not going to go fight some person. I
No.
don't even know their language. Like for some corrupt political leader, that's insanity.
all of these people, and we've stressed this in many videos. All of these people are weaklings, first of all, and
They're evil and corrupt.
They're evil and corrupt, and they don't follow them at all. None of them. That's the truth.
Don't
Like,
follow the cult of the surface. You know, in the West,
it's an illusion.
you know, it's so interesting, man. You know, I was watching, you know, these videos of some native people, some indigenous people, might have been from Africa, and Cameron. These guys they're like models. They look like models. They're beautiful, and they can literally.
Where's this at now, my good man?
This was out there. I mean, all indigenous
Mm.
cultures, but I was watching one, and it was some guy talking about it, and he was talking about there's no depression in the jungle. Like there was a guy, his name was David Cho, I think. He went and spent some time in the jungle with these people. I don't know if it was the Amazon. I think it was somewhere else, but it might have been the Amazon. And he's talking about how these people were just beautiful, and they were so fit and so healthy.
Let's look at some of the situations we got going on around here. We have some pretty, saying the least, fucked up individuals.
Yeah.
Let's just take
Mental health is just
Uh,
being destroyed by the poisons in our food, by the drugs that are so quickly to be prescribed.
I want to say this, man, and this is fucking serious. Anybody, and I feel in this area in particular, we have we really do, but a lot of people doesn't have any compassion for one another. It's, you get somebody down, and then you always have somebody to come and put the last few kicks in to try to get those people even more down. Look, this is serious. Just let's take, for example, someone who is going through a very terrible situation in life, the way we all do, where they come and go. And this person deals with this, self-harm reasons. And you have people just, and this is a very bad thing to do. This is horrible. This is something that we shouldn't do, as in the circumstance we're in, and as far as really trying to awake spiritually.
Yes.
But on the other hand, that's not the way to deal with it. We know people that, in our family, who would look at somebody doing this and just be like, well,
They're going to hell.
they're going to hell. Their soul is damned.
because their cosmology. Because think about it, man. This is what I always say to people that are, strictly Christian, for example. It's one of the most prevalent. No, it is the prevalent religion in our region. And it's like, okay, so you just happen to adopt into your philosophy the local religion. I say this a lot. Uh, you were so quick to just take um, these thought systems from your parents without question.
This is so big.
What if you were born in India? What if you were born in the Middle East? You would be a Muslim, because you never inquired reality. You just simply adopted what was handed to you on a platter. This whole platter of beliefs. I say that is that's hogwash.
Yeah.
We should question everything, and realize that we are in a very strange situation as humans.
Very strange situation.
And I think that there's a way to be free, and I'm not saying that I have all the answers. I definitely don't, but I do know, especially with the presence of some of these plants that deliver you to these realms unimaginable, and the fact that our brains produce compounds like DMT. I think that in itself is evidence that that's we have within ourselves this ability to gaze into mystical dimensions.
One thing we would like to touch upon is, well, first of all, like he said, we are two gentlemen who, whenever possible, we have and we conduct these ceremonies. We delve into, say, for instance, the mystical teachings of Crowley. We read a great deal of things in the Gita, things from LaVey, were different philosophers. And from the things we've learned from this, the things we've learned from these plants, we are still obviously
we're still on the path.
We're still on the path.
We're not actualized beings or anything.
But I do want to come forth with this truth that we do believe that we are on the right path. Why is that? Well, it's what resonates as this may sound a little weird, but it resonates with our spirit. What are you actually drawn to?
Yeah.
What do you feel that you're drawn to, despite
you should pay attention to that.
What people may say is wrong.
But there is something to be careful about there too. Is it takes a real
I think I know what you're
bit of
say.
liberation, because what if you're drawn to something because of some cultural influence,
right,
or something like that? So you do got to be careful and use discernment, but be mindful of the things that you're drawn to and explore them. If they resonate with you, then pursue them.
I would like to touch on really quick. It just made me kind of think about it. A lot of people don't really talk about this. I feel, at least I've never stumbled upon somebody talk about this. I feel like a big, and this may start off sounding like something a Christian would say, but natural lustful feelings and what kind of actions that these could turn into. We are both married people, and have been for many years. I would do nothing, and he would as well, to cheat on our partner. But think about the unwise decisions
that are impulses.
Now, we have to think, he brought this up to me, possibly after a psilocybin experience, and he got pretty deep into this. We are monkeys. LaVey talks about it. We're animals. And the impulses that we rely on, even LaVey, somebody who practiced freedom, but going from one person to the next, trying to get them pregnant, this is far, 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 far
from vital existence.
So that's just a flip side of, look, being free doesn't mean to do something like this.
Yeah, to be free does not mean to just obey every impulse that you have.
because that's going to cause a world of hurting.
Yes, you
It's
need discernment, and I think what we're trying to do is it's like the spirit inside of us or the God inside of us is trying to break out of this monkey matrix that
for
we're
sure.
in. You know,
You will
so
feel it for sure.
right, and there's a lot of beautiful things about being human. There is, and I think that we should enjoy our humanness and learn the teachings of our lives. Um, but I think also that it is possible um, that you know, our attachments may keep us bound to this world. You know, I think that's part of the spiritual life. Is I love what Ron Dawes talks about. You know, he says like, you know, screw your friends. You know, if there's, you know, any kind of attachment there, then that can be problematic. You know, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at least in my life right now, I feel like the most important thing to me is truth and is freedom, and we are living in a world so lost, so lost. Um,
Yeah, man, we are, and I would like to touch on one example of that. So yesterday, and by the way, I would like to reveal this truth just because it ties into the story. Me and my wife are actually very closely getting ready to have our first baby. Now, why I bring this up is a situation, a very appalling situation that happened yesterday, was a group of, you know, young people, uh, people in high school. They were, to make a long story short, terrorizing and treating a chicken very horribly, throwing rocks, hitting it with sticks. Now, I'm bringing this up as a little bit of a way to vent and to point out something that maybe you haven't thought of. But have you ever thought of, if you step on an insect, treat another animal poorly, that's yourself? It has a consciousness. Scientists has proven, even though we're not one
Science deals with the surface, you know.
to say that the science has everything, you know, figured out. It does a great many of things, but also not. But
McKenna was talking about this today in a lecture. Not to cut you off.
yes,
He said, you know, the things that we are talking about, there's no way that reductionist scientists can touch on because
no,
this is a whole different level of being.
it's like I don't know which branch it is, but for the certain scientists who cannot conceive of, say, a 5D world, that's just such a mind fuck to them.
Smoke DMT.
Now, that's so true, man. As I was mentioning, I actually ended up saying something to get this to stop because this is absolutely no different in you treating another person poorly. And we've stressed a lot over some of our videos, we need to get back to that base of love, which is ultimately, at least I feel with my experiences with these plants, the number one thing that seems to come up the most. But this doesn't just mean with a so-called human being, which is actually the name for our particular animal. But as I mentioned, the first thing that I thought is I'm going to try to shine some light whenever we have our baby and as it grows, that this is the complete opposite of the truth that we should behave as. I feel that the way that Christianity has been brought forth and displayed is humans are the dominant race, dominion over every other thing living. And as I mentioned, as science has proved, insects has been researched over the years. Insects have the emotions very similar to how we have. They have the feeling of love. They have the feeling of that they're in danger. They they have a feeling of jealousy. How funny! I could just imagine. There's a wifey ant and a hubby ant. The hubby ant goes to look for food, and then this other hubby ant comes and she's just like, "Hey, I have to kill you now." But all jokes aside, this is very big, and I wanted to take this situation that happened yesterday. Obviously, I said something about it, but we need to be mindful and really take everything much more. The, the, the situation is
We're very selfish, you know. Most people are.
that's kind of what I was going to say, man. We look at what can better ourselves, but going back to this true love, this source. Oh my God, it's my new. I've said it for months. It's one of our new favorite sayings. You know, that unconditional love that is talked about with Buddha, Jesus. This is the ultimate, the highest consciousness we can get ourselves into. And, you know, you may treat other people correctly, but not with animals, insects, birds, rocks, trees. I mean, anything, you know, everything that's here. We are all together. And yeah, that's, I wanted to cover that real quick, man. I apologize for ranting, cutting you off a few times, but maybe you can get some words in. I'm going to run to the restroom real quick.
Yeah.
Oh, and I want to say this really quick, actually. Going back to this idiot who was in office, and that's such an understatement, for him to take away, talk about freedom, to do what me and him are doing right now.
Is illegal in a lot of states right now, and is kratom is becoming.
Yeah.
Basically, we're looking at it becoming a Schedule 1 substance very soon, and it's sad. Because I truly do feel that that Mycogenia speciosa does have religious uses. I mean, religion in its earliest form was shamanism, you know, and when you look into Hinduism, they had Soma, and they lost it, and you know, so religion in its earliest conception is always shamanism, and then once the connection, you know, through the plants is lost, it begins to degrade into priesthood and hierarchies, and ego starts to get involved. So I think what me and him are trying to do is practice religion in the way it was practiced, you know, at the very beginning. And, you know, going back to what he was saying about, you know, everything that lives on this planet or anywhere feels that it is the center of its own consciousness. It's the center of its own universe, that is. And I think people assume so much, and they assume that you know, I can just treat this person however I want because I'm not them, and it's not going to hurt me. And I think that is a very low consciousness way of looking at it. I think that you know, our presence on this planet is very strange. I think we see karma working out all the time, honestly.
Yeah.
And you know, in Hinduism and Buddhism, you know, they talk about hell realms, and Tibetan Buddhism, there's this place called the Bardo, which I have found myself in on a couple deep tryptamine experiences. And the Bardo is this, it lasts about 30 days after you die. You go into this place, and you will see entities, and in the Tibetan Book of the Dead.
Didn't you say Crowley also mentioned it in this book that we have now?
he mentions samadhi,
That's what it was.
Yeah,
I got it mixed up.
but it wouldn't surprise me if he did touch on that.
Yeah.
You know, but unlike the Christian view of hell, which is this irredeemable thing, you know, you have this maniacal God that will doom anyone who does not worship him and send them to hell, you know, and that's ridiculous. But I do think that it's possible that, you know, the core of each of us, you know, does have a karmic debt that we will have to pay, and I don't think that anyone is going to get away with treating people unkind, and not just people, but you know, we should be considerate of all things that have a consciousness, and you know, in the occult, like attracts like, and you know, if you're being nice to people, I feel like people are more likely to be nice to you. And
Yeah.
if you're being mean to people, people are probably more likely to be mean to you.
Oh yeah, you can watch
And
the patterns.
so I think that's a big part of magic. Is I like to think of our whole lives as a magical working
Mhm.
and as an alchemization. And, you know, we can be seduced by our materialistic culture and
So
distract
much.
ourselves.
To get seduced on.
Exactly. You know, we're like cats, you know, and all these lasers are pointed, you know, all these cool colors, and we're just like, oh.
Oh god.
So I think that's why stuff like
Yeah.
these plants and things like meditation and psychedelics can allow you to